We should be live.
Yep, right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Speaker Insight, where we help speakers, authors, and coaches build a business on your terms. So, a big fat welcome to everybody who's watching. And we always start with what's the buzz in our business. Now, the buzz in our business this week, I don't know whether you know, particularly for the coaches. This is Kelly, I'm Helena, by the way, and we'll introduce Jonathan in a moment. The buzz in our business is that actually it is International Coaching Week.
The whole of this week.
Which is just amazing. And so I'm sort of saying, get all your questions out there, people. Now, we have been running inside the Connection Hub a competition called My Light Bulb Moment, where we've been actually asking for the last month all of the coaches to really share what is your light bulb moment that allows everybody else to kind of share of the wisdom that they have in building their business. Now, we've been running it for a month, and we'd love to announce that the winner who gets a place at one of our Connect and Create workshop days is actually Sandra Novell. So well done you. And for those of you who don't actually know about the Connection Hub, that's where we all hang out and share juicy stuff like this. And if you actually do the search function and do hashtag my light bulb moment, there are some really good pieces of advice in there from coaches who've really built their businesses. So
and Helena will put the link to the Connection Hub if you're not part of it, so you can join us, because we'll be running more of these competitions. But this one was specifically for the coaches, because we've got speakers and authors and coaches in the group, and we wanted coaches to share their insights and what they've learned, their aha light bulb moment with other coaches.
Exactly.
And the reason why we chose Sandra's top tip or light bulb moment is because it's sparked quite a lot of conversations with other people who had the same insight, which was mainly about giving your coaches time in between coaching sessions to actually absorb what you've learned, implement it, and come back with questions rather than keep them, to do.
Exactly.
It was that space in between coaching sessions and how she's packaged her coaching sessions to allow that to happen. So we will be sending you details, Sandra, so you can check that out and come to our next Connect and Create workshop.
Hurrah! Well done.
So the reason why we were doing this Facebook Live today, and then we've got the lovely Jonathan with us, is because we are all on countdown mode to the 25th of May this year, which is when the regulations and everything needs to be in place for you to be GDPR compliant. Now, I have had lots of people come, or we've had lots of people come to us going, I don't even know what it means. I see Jonathan smiling. I don't even know what it means. How do can you summarize it for me? Because I'm not a big business, so all the things they're telling me to do is not relevant for me. I'm a micro business. And what are the things that I need to give myself peace of mind? Because they're listening to all this advice from people. And I've had stuff, Jonathan, you might have heard this, that, oh my God, I'm going to have to delete my mailing list on the 25th of May because I haven't heard back from all these people. And I'm like, no. Some of those people are your customers, and it's actually illegal for you to delete their data because you need to have customers on your, that's not what we're talking about. So I really want to go through this Facebook Live and really bust some myths, give people a bit of clarity, calm down a little bit.
Exactly.
And for Jonathan's done Facebook Lives on this before. He's a real expert, and if you've been in the Connection Hub and he's been putting answers to people's questions up, he's been a real star. But what he's great at is giving the practical advice, non-jargon, making it specific for small businesses. That's his thing. He's, just to give you, I know you can introduce yourself, Jonathan, but I'm going to give you a bit of background in the fact that he's done this for one of the largest investment banking companies out there. So learning about data and managing data on that scale. He's now transitioned because his heart is with the entrepreneur, with the small business owner, and he wants to give them the chance to learn how to do this in a strategic way, in a practical way. So his consultancy business does that. And I just love the way, when I first heard one of his webinars, Facebook Lives, it just made so much sense to me about GDPR, and I get it now. And what the other bit I love about what Jonathan does is he helps you use GDPR to your advantage. So you can actually use it as more of a selling tool, a USP, a positioning piece for you, rather than it's just all about scaremongering and you've got to be compliant. And really all we are talking about here is data protection, which has been around for frigging years. Yes. It's just been being more compliant with it. So should we get into some questions for Jonathan? Jonathan, do you want to just say hi and just tell people a little insight into your world?
Okay, so hi, Jonathan Small. So I've been around in information risk and stuff like that for 20 years. I'm a techie at heart, so was always on the keyboards doing stuff, and I found this to be great to help people understand more about what GDPR is about and how you can use it properly. There's just way too much rubbish out there, so I'm gonna dispel a myth straight away. Don't panic. The ICO came out last week and said, don't panic. No one's going to be 100% compliant. Put it this way, the data protection bill hasn't even made it through the House of Commons, and we're on the 8th of May. So how on earth could anybody be 100% compliant if the law hasn't been signed off yet? What Elizabeth, who's the Information Commissioner, wants to see is that you know what you're doing and you made some journey on managing all this information.
Yeah, you're making it basically.
Yeah, just you know what you're doing. You know what information you've got. That's the important thing. So actually understanding what information you've got, where you've got it, and why you've got it is important. So one of the analogies I give is if I sell you a sewing machine, okay. Yeah. I would need some information from you to sell you a sewing machine. Okay. And that would then be a contract. So we have the legal basis of a contract for me to keep your information to satisfy the contract.
Right, okay, yeah.
What it doesn't mean is that I can use that information to sign you up to Tractor Monthly or whatever. I can only use the information for what you've given it to me for, and not expand that bubble. Now, it's about playing fair. So, I could still use that information in 6 months' time under what we call legitimate interest to say, email you about some new thread for the sewing machine. I don't know why I pick sewing machines, but hey, we'll go with it. But it, obviously, yeah. Oh, no, I've used it all over the place. So, yeah, no, not just a new one I've created for today. But it feels right. It feels balanced that my interest about telling you about this new thread versus your interest about being interested in that sort of stuff seems fair. It doesn't mean I can email you every day, but emailing you once in 6 months and making sure there's that good, clear opt-out on the bottom, so that I think we're sending some communication that's relevant, and I've given you the opportunity to opt out to say, don't want to hear from you again. How fair does that feel?
It's how a relationship with a customer should be, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. One of the questions that comes up quite often is business cards.
Yeah. We've got that in the questions.
Yes. So when I get a business card, I usually write on the back of it where I got it and the date.
Okay.
So if someone comes along, I can say, well, actually, you gave it to me at this event on this date, and that's all I do. I will generally either ping them on LinkedIn or send an email to say, hey, it was good to meet you. This is what I do. If you're interested, sign up here. Otherwise, it was good to meet you.
Yeah, nice.
Because they gave me their business card. I presume to talk to them.
Yeah.
It wasn't to make a little paper airplane out of. The purpose was to connect.
And I think that's really key, Jonathan, right? Because I know that your email database or those types of sites are seen as an asset for a lot of people. But actually, if your database is actually full of not your avatar, people that aren't interested, then the size of it doesn't really matter. And actually, you're skewing what you're expecting your results to be. Because if your conversion ratio to a 10,000 people database is only like 5%, when actually if you have 500 really engaged people on that database, you'd actually have a much clearer representation of your business. So this isn't just be data protection. This is actually, let's get really clear on how many people you've got that you're impacting that are engaging, to give yourself a real understanding of your business.
And how you're running your business, because actually that's the foundation of it anyway.
Yeah, agreed.
So six months ago, I worked with a company. They had a database of 50K. and we ended up with 5k remaining. But it's 5k that are engaged.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
not sending out 45,000 emails that just aren't getting any traction. And what's worse is,
and depending on what CRM system you're using, that's costing you, right? Because if you're
that's it.
Yeah, and come the 26th of May.
Hang on a minute.
I think we had a blip. We all right?
Give it a second.
Oh.
I'll keep moving.
This is the interlude where you get bird song while the internet catches up on us.
Sorry, John. Yeah, we lost you a little bit there.
No worries, no worries. So they're not sending 45k rubbish. Oh,
ding dong.
Oh,
there we go.
Ding dong.
And as if by magic, here we are again. So in essence, just to go back one little step, if you could give everybody the briefest, simplest explanation of what is GDPR and why are so many people worried?
Okay, so GDPR is General Data Protection Regulation. So it's an update of the Data Protection Act, which is 22 years old. So it's before we had Facebook, before we had big data, before we had all that sort of stuff. The really sad case I like to give is the case of Olive. She was an old lady that gave to a charity. They put on her list and saying, yep, she's a good prospect. And then they sold that data on.
Yeah.
And it got resold multiple times. And she was just getting hounded by other charities that knew she gave money.
Yeah.
And she eventually committed suicide because she just felt the pressure.
Wow.
And that's just a prime example of bad data behavior.
Yeah.
What was, you know, where was the consideration of her rights and where was the consideration of the impact?
Yeah. Her privacy. Yeah.
It's a nasty example, but it just shows what can go wrong if you don't give that data proper respect. That's the other thing for GDPR. Give data proper respect.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is people have got to move away from today. People are just grabbing data as much as they can and they're keeping hold of it as a safety blanket. And they think that some miracle is going to come along and say, oh, look, if we look at this data this way, bang, the whole world will be solved and we've made our millions. That's rubbish.
Yeah, truly.
9 times out of 10, you're collecting junk. And if you process junk, you'll end up with more junk.
Yeah, that's it.
So today, well, GDPR Day, 25th of May, it's about me as a data subject loaning you my data in effect.
Yeah.
With me being having the understanding of what you're going to do with it. So when you're dealing with someone's data, you've got to be clear, transparent, fair, and lawful with what you're doing. Okay. If you can't look somebody in the eye and tell them what you're going to do with their data, you're probably doing something dodgy, so don't.
Yeah, so it is that protection, isn't it? It's actually looking after the customer as much as you being a responsible business owner.
Yeah. Which actually, you know, is really how all relationships are founded, and that's what we're wanting to encourage.
100%.
Yeah.
So I think that there are some chunked up themes that I'm hearing regularly of these new regulations, right? So looking at, I've got some of the things that we've had some of our Connection Hub members ask us. So and things that I've heard from you speak about before, which I think would be really good to let our audience know. Yeah. So you have to specify now when you get a contact how long they're going to be on your database for, right? So can you just tell us a little bit about that, what that means and what people do about that?
So there's one word that's banned, and that's called the word indefinitely or forever. That, you know, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm going to keep you on my database for 10 years, 100 years, a million years, whatever?
Right.
Yeah. Data always has a life to it, and there's usually an event plus some time. So take an employee, for example, you can keep their HR data till the day they leave, plus 7 years.
Okay.
So you're actually putting a defined lifespan on it, but without having to say, on 2023, I'm going to delete your data.
Yeah.
So usually there's an event and then there's some time. Okay. So I'm dealing with schools at the moment. So schools, when a pupil leaves the school, you know, then the clock starts ticking to when they have to actually get rid of the data.
Okay.
So
and then
it's
how does that work, Jonathan? If somebody looking at our audience that are speakers, authors and coaches, majority of them are going to obtain this data from speaking on stage by doing some opt-in free resource, and really they're saying, come and join my database from stage or this resource because I'm going to give you this thing.
Yeah.
They haven't really got a timeline in their head of when they want to get rid of them, right? But then how do they position that?
Well, it's about what I also call a data diet. When does that data become unsavory to consume again? No. When is it best before date? Okay. So if someone came to one of your seminars 5 years ago, probably 10 years ago, I wouldn't say so.
Okay.
Yeah. And the ICO and the regulators aren't telling you, unless there's a legal requirement, so back to the HMRC, et cetera, what that time frame is. You need to work it out for yourself around that balance. What's good for you versus what's good for the data subject. So if you can demonstrate that balance.
Yeah, and it's common sense really then, isn't it?
And it's really interesting because a lot of, certainly in the speakers, authors, coaches sort of arena, actually the chances are most of us have actually shifted and changed from what we were doing 3 years ago, and we've actually updated where we're at. So that's probably something to get people thinking too.
The other thing that when I spoke to you last, Jonathan, that was really interesting to me is the type of data. And this is a bit more on the data diet thing, because if you've done I think you gave the example when I spoke to you last of like a job interview or having a survey, and then you've got all this information about this person because of the application form or the survey they've done. You don't have the right to keep that information on your system because there's lots of protection around what the type of information you hold about that person.
So look at the information you've got, and then look at the reasons of why you're processing it. And there'll be lots of different reasons why you're processing a piece of information. Now, I might have collected that whole set of information there, about somebody as part of that survey. Over time, some of that information might then end up just being irrelevant. So, but some of it you might want to keep for specific purposes. So I'll give you an example. One of the data subject rights is the right to erasure, the right to be forgotten. So the right to be forgotten. Now,
can you just say that last bit one more time, because you just went off. So the last point you went
Dalek, darling.
So the one with the hand, or did we get that?
Yeah, so we got to the bit about
we got to this bit.
Okay, so basically I might have 5 elements of information about you, but as we go through time, they slowly become irrelevant because either they're date stamped or so for example, somebody's address, 10 years time you might have moved, but your name and your date of birth is still valid. That's going to stay the same. One of the good examples is the right to be forgotten, the right to erasure. So you might hold 5 bits of information on somebody. Now they have the right to say, forget about me. Well, can you truly forget about them? Because if you delete it all, how do you then prove that you've deleted them and that you've had that right? So you probably say, right, we're going to keep your name and maybe one other piece of information to then be able to uniquely identify you, so that if something gets restored from a backup or somebody comes with a report or something, we can say, yes, Fred Smith of this date of birth, we deleted him on X date. So, it's
reassuring, I think, for a lot of people.
Logical, because I've had so many people say they're just going to delete their whole database on the 25th of May of people that haven't opted into their GDPR email. I'm like, no, don't do that.
Your existing database, there are a couple of elements to think about it. So if you looked at everybody's database, there is going to be an element of junk that's been there 10, 15, 20 years. Do the decent thing and just get rid of that. So what's left? Now, how did that data get into that database originally? If you've got something that you can show the consent and how they consented and when they consented, you can keep that. If it's around legitimate interests, so there's another regulation called PECA, Privacy and Electronic Communication Regulation, which describes how you can communicate to people. If, going back to the sewing machine example, I've had an interaction with you in the past about selling a sewing machine. It seems fairly relevant in the future. I could email you about new sewing machines.
Yeah.
Yes.
As long as there's that choice of that opt-out.
Opting out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's important, isn't it? That these are the chunked up themes that everyone has to have that unsubscribe feature. But also the other thing is that people need to opt in rather than opt out. That's another key.
So we'll come back to that one in a second. Let's finish the database one first. So basically, if you are emailing someone from your old database, but you can show a relevant and a worthy connection, you're fine, especially given the opt-out. Because if they come and complain and they haven't taken the opportunity to use the opt-out themselves, the regulator's just going to turn around and say, you're an idiot, you didn't opt out when you had the chance.
Yeah, it is giving that consumer back the right, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Get that. Okay, cool.
So in terms of consent, so you're right, there's a change to consent. So consent must be an informed, positive action.
Right.
So today you'll see, a tick box pre-ticked to say, I want to join your email list.
Yeah.
That won't count because the individual hasn't done a positive action.
Taken the action.
Yeah. Okay. And also it needs to be in positive language. So you can't have a tick box that says, you can't have a tick box that says, I don't want to receive. It all has to be in the positive. And also inaction doesn't count. So you can't send an email that says, I'm adding you to my list. If you don't reply within 10 days, I presume that's consent.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's really key because a lot of people aren't getting that double negatives or the fact that they have to tick the box rather than have it.
But what's interesting for me about that is that actually you're getting people to put their hands up, which in effect kind of qualifies them almost even more, because people are choosing, they're needing to choose to actually be part of your gang.
Yeah. And you need to give them choice of consent. So for example, you might have newsletter, marketing messages, customer services messages, but then also by email, phone, SMS. Yeah. So you give them like a little bit of a grid so they can decide what they want to be communicated about.
Like type and format. Yeah. It's like, how do I best want to be communicated about what kind of things?
Yep.
And so I think what would be really handy is I think I told you this, Jonathan, before the call, is the things that you and me are getting questions around. So if somebody has got a database, no matter what size, what should they do before the 25th of May as much as possible to make it compliant? Yeah.
So the first thing that you must do is not email anybody that has opted out in the past.
Yeah.
So even though they're on your database, they might have opted out of email communication. Don't be tempted to email them and try and get new consent.
Back in,
Honda did that, EasyJet did that, and they got walloped with a big fine for it.
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, me too.
So basically, the individual said, "I'm not interested." You've got to respect that.
Yeah.
That it then becomes a point of, do you actually need to keep that data any longer? Has it expired in terms of its usefulness? If it has, junk it.
Okay.
Now, in terms of the rest of it, again, looking at that database, how has that data got there, and can you prove to GDPR level that there's a consent for that information to be there and for that processing action to happen?
Yeah. Perfect.
It's not necessarily all about the data you've got. It's about how you're using that data for what different purposes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I might have somebody's name in my database, but I've got it there for maybe 3 different purposes. Even if one of those purposes expires, the 2 other ones still make it valid.
Yeah. Okay, I get that. Okay, perfect. And then if they have existing squeeze pages, opt-in pages that are already currently running, how do they make them GDPR compliant?
So the biggest thing is most of the CRM tools and databases I see today, they've just got a tick box that says Fred consented.
Right.
But it doesn't say when Fred consented, what Fred consented to, etc., etc. So it's not giving the information about the granularity of the consent.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's more about just getting consent. It's about what did they consent to, when did they consent to it, etc., etc.
Okay, so date stamp, where it came from. Okay, good. We're going to be summarising all this.
I'm currently, that's what my head's
what
down.
The typing is. And I know you answered this one. I know we had a question in the Connection Hub around the business cards, but you mentioned that earlier about what you would do with business cards, right on the back, and keep it where you met them, what they offered it for, and then send them a LinkedIn message or whatever it is to say you wanted to connect. This is how we connect, and then make it compliant. Yeah, I think that one's covered. And then what about? I've seen a couple of things being posted around changing your privacy policy statements on your website, T's and C's. Is there a summary or something that you can give people an overarching view of what they need to do with that?
So there's some great resource on the ICO website, but let me try and summarise it.
So we'll also put the ICO website in the comments so that people can check that out.
They are doing a great job compared to all the other regulators in Europe. They are the lead regulator in this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Great. So privacy notices. So basically, it's about back to being that transparent, clear, fair, and lawful. So does your privacy notice tell the person what data you're collecting it, why you're collecting it, who you're going to give it to, how you're going to store it, how long you're going to keep it for, those sort of questions.
Okay.
So that the person can make an informed choice about what's going to happen.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. They just need to have that on their privacy policy on their website or wherever the data collection is being captured from, lead pages, etc.
Now, what the ICO like is layered stuff. So, do you both use PayPal?
Yes.
PayPal and Stripe.
Yeah. So, have you read the 7,500 words of PayPal's privacy notice?
Obviously.
So, the suspicious mind in me says it's 7,500 words to make sure you don't read it. So what the ICO is very keen about is doing layered privacy notices. So give them, 5 or 6 bullet points, and then a link off to the full detail. So I can make a choice based on that summary, but I still have the option to go into the full detail if I want to get the full detail before I make my decision.
And you have the full detail if anything comes up legally wise to have the real in-depth backup, but it's that. Nobody's going to read 7,000 words.
The other thing is it's got to be clear to your audience. So if you're specifically targeting children, it should be in a children-friendly format. Right. If it's targeting old people, then some of the language might need to be adjusted, etc.
And large font.
Well, make sure your accessibility controls are there. Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. So I this is something that I've got a personal question which I should have really prepped you with beforehand, but I am suffering from GDPR overwhelm, not in I don't know what to do, but in if anyone sends me another fucking email. And I'm like, and I know that actually there are some companies that maybe are losing me because I'm not clicking on it because I just haven't got the time to answer 15 emails a day asking me to opt in. So my question is, what if you left it after the 25th of May to start contacting your database? Once you filtered it down and do that data diet, and I found the people that maybe haven't got consent within a way that I've done it, maybe I've just got their business card or whatever, they haven't opted in. How would it be bad to contact them after the 25th and say, look, I'm doing this, but I'm not within the time period? Because I know that there are people saying that they're activating with Elizabeth, the Member of Parliament, to see if she can extend it to December for SMEs. And so I just want your insider knowledge on what should we do?
So can you show a legitimate interest?
Yes.
So can you make a legitimate interest case that it's both in your benefit and in their benefit?
Yeah.
And you can show that you've had some sort of previous relationship to show that this is still valid. So you would be on dodgy ground if you had a database of 100 people and 50 of them you'd never communicated with in the past.
They wouldn't know who I was or what I did.
How could you show that that's a balanced and legitimate interest?
Okay.
For the other 50, if you've had previous courses with them or sales, then you have the routes for your legitimate interest there to then contact them. but be fair. Say, you know, one contact. If you want to opt out, here's the opt out, etc., etc.
But doing it post the 25th.
I think, so my personal view is, if you can demonstrate that it's fair and balanced, and it's not of a negative impact to the receiver, you're meeting the spirit of the regulation.
We're showing that we understand it and we're being compliant. Because all I'm seeing is so many people send stuff out, and because of this, you know, GDPR overwhelm, and with their open rate is always 30%, so they're missing 70% of their database anyway because they're not even seeing the email. I just think that it's that people are just going a bit crazy, thinking they're going to lose 10 years worth of work that they've built up because of those two factors.
I mean, there's lots of chatter in the GDPR world around all these reconsent emails at the moment. A couple of people are saying, great, it means I don't have to go and tell them that I want to unsubscribe, because, you know, they sent me the mail. If I don't respond, they've got to take me off. They've done my job for me. And others are then just waiting for them to then contact them after the 25th of May. What are you contacting me for? Where's the consent? Here's a subject access request. Go and fill it in and tell me why on earth you're talking to me.
Okay.
So it's, you know, letter of the law says, you know, 25th of May, you should have that right consent or legitimate interest around your database in place. Is Elizabeth and her team going to jump in a minibus and come and storm down your front door if you do it after that time? It's about, you know, make sure you can demonstrate that fairness, and that you're not putting somebody at risk or at harm or
not even matching what their wants and needs are, right? That's the thing. I get that, and luckily it's going to stop people buying lists and all that crap that goes on in the world, where you don't even know where you end up on someone's mailing list, and you think, how do they even get my data? So
how do you know who I am?
I think I mean, what this session has done, Jonathan, which I really appreciate, is just that it calms people's minds, it gives it perspective, but it also gives people those things of what they can do, whether you've got 100 people on your database or 10,000 or whatever. And the things that you've got currently out there of opt-in pages and business cards in your drawer, and they don't know what to do with that. So I think these are the touch points of where you collect data, and they can then do that sense check of those key areas that you said, to making it, is it meeting those 4 criteria, and then they can give themselves a bit of peace of mind that actually I'm okay. I'm doing what I can as a small business owner, running a business and doing all this. I'm playing my role to as best as I can. And I've got the customer in mind. That's the thing. I care about the customer. I'm meeting their needs, and I just want to have a good relationship with them.
And for me, I mean, it's actually an opportunity for you as a business owner to really take a look at, is everything that I'm doing serving the people that I'm actually serving? And have I got the messages in the right place? Have I, you know, who are these people? And actually that opportunity to not be in overwhelm of, oh, I've got this whole bunch of people that I just didn't do anything with, like forever and ever ago, because we've all got a little lurking bunch of people on our database that you go, I really should be in touch with them. And, you know, I think there's something there for you to go, should you?
And just the other point that you've raised before with me, Jonathan, I think of using it as a USP positioning point for you, because let's not be around the bush. There are companies that are being publicly shown what they've done, where they've messed up, right? And they could be your competitors. They could show that they didn't actually have their customers' interest at heart, and everything is public. So, you know, it's visible for anyone to see who is mucking up. Like, you know, didn't know about boys, like you just said, but
what's going to be very different this time around compared to the Data Protection Act is the public's knowledge about their rights. So there are already, where I live in Bournemouth, already adverts on local radio that says, you know, Mrs. Smith trusts her dog to the vet. Can she trust her vet with her data?
Interesting.
And the ICO are launching, or have launched, a publicity campaign called Your Data Matters. Did you get that? Your Data Matters? Yeah. Within that, there's something called the fingerprint family, and it's a set of cartoony characters with fingerprints as their heads, and they've got different characteristics. So there's some old people, there's some young people, etc., etc. and they're going to be using that over the next few months to get that data out there, to get that knowledge out there.
Nice.
So some bad companies will see some impact because they'll get lots of subject access requests, for example.
From them who now know what their rights are. Yeah, I like it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Perfect.
Yeah.
So we will put the ICO, well, I think you've put the ICO link in the comments so people can actually do that, because there's really practical information out there, and I completely agree with you that they're doing a great job.
Yeah.
I think we also put your link up there to the Y Consultants, because you work with these people one-to-one.
That's in there now.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. And you know, you've just been such a great help for, you know, just even in the Connection Hub, people put stuff up and you're right there answering questions, really going into detail.
There's one from Liz. Do all small businesses have to register with the ICO?
So the easiest way is there's actually a checklist questionnaire that we'll go through. There's a couple of key questions around things like CCTV, charitable status, things like that. In essence, probably the answer would be yes, if you're keeping other people's data.
Yeah.
There is exception around hobbies and whether you're doing it just for home life, but it's £35 for the year, and it's how the ICO is funded. So they don't get any of the fine money at all. So
really?
Yeah, no. So otherwise it becomes a conflict of interest for them going out and finding people to raise their revenue. So all the fees paid for the ICO, the fines go straight to the Treasury.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't it just?
Yeah.
Even that in itself makes you want to comply. Oops.
So we really appreciate your time, Jonathan, and we really recommend everyone checking out Y Consultants as well, because you guys do an amazing job, and you're just a fountain of knowledge, and you demystify it and make it all jargon friendly for us.
And honestly, if you still have questions, just tag Jonathan, because he's amazing when he's not going out helping the schools and whatever else he's doing at the moment. You know, he just pops on and just answers, you know, uses his beautiful brain to support all of us, which is amazing. Thank you.
We really appreciate your time, Jonathan.
No problem.
All right then.
Gorgeous rest of the day.
Enjoy some sunshine. Sounds like
I can see out the window. I'm still writing a data map, but I'll look a bit. You're lucky you didn't get the 1 o'clock chicken going off. So one of our chickens is about 1 o'clock.
That's awesome. Now we need to do another one just for the 1 o'clock chicken.
We got the little background noise, but not the chicken.
That's it. And we've obviously supplied birds from this garden, so it's all good.
Awesome. You have a great week. Thanks very much. Take care.
No worries. Have fun. Bye.
Bye.